A rusted Bronco coughed to a stop on the gravel. Tires crunched against pine needles, soaked black from last night's rain. The driver's door creaked open. A boot stepped down into mud. The engine ticked in the cold mountain air. Somewhere up the ridge, a crow called once and went silent. A woman in a faded barn coat stared at the cabin in front of her. Her breath came out white. She had not slept in 2 days. The bank notice was still folded inside her coat pocket. $214. That was every dollar she had left in the world. The cabin door was padlocked. The windows were boarded. She did not know yet what was under the kitchen floor. Her name was Maren Holloway. She was 42 years old, and this ridge was her last chance. Why would a dead aunt leave her a sealed cabin, 19 years bolted shut from the inside? Stay with me on this one. The letter had come on a Tuesday. Maren remembered because Tuesday was the day the repo man usually drove past the house slow, checking to see if the Bronco was still in the driveway. The envelope was yellow at the edges. The return address read Pickering & Sons, attorneys at law, Sylva, North Carolina. She thought it was another collection notice. She almost threw it in the wood stove without opening it. She had been a baker once. She and Tom had run a little shop on Charlotte Street in Asheville for 11 years. Cinnamon bread on Mondays. Sourdough on Wednesdays. Wedding cakes on weekends. They had been happy. Then Tom got the headaches. Then the scan. Then the 18 months that ate every dollar they had ever saved. He died on a Sunday morning in February. The hospital bills did not die with him. They followed her into the shop, into the bank, into the courtroom. She had sold the bakery in October to a developer who turned it into a brewery. She kept exactly enough to bury her husband. The letter said her Aunt Delphine had passed. Maren read the name twice before it meant anything. Delphine. Her father's older sister. The strange one. The one nobody talked about at Thanksgiving. Delphine had worked in New York once, something with art, something with auctions. She had come home to North Carolina in 1987 and vanished into the mountains. Maren had been a small child then. She remembered a tall woman with iron-gray hair and a wool coat. She remembered a smell of lavender and turpentine. Nothing else. The attorney's name was Harold Pickering. He was 81 years old, and he answered his own phone. He told Maren her aunt had left her a cabin. He told her the deed was clean. He told her she would need to drive up to Sylva to sign the papers. He told her there was a key. She drove the Bronco west on a Thursday. The truck had been Tom's. The transmission slipped in third gear. The radio only got AM. She passed Black Mountain and Old Fort, and the long climb up to the Eastern Continental Divide. The sky turned the color of slate. By the time she reached Sylva, the rain was coming sideways. Harold Pickering was a small man with hands that shook. His office smelled like pipe tobacco and old paper. He poured her coffee in a chipped mug. He slid a manila envelope across the desk. Inside was a deed, a hand-drawn map, and a skeleton key on a leather cord. He looked at her over his glasses. He said her aunt had left strict instructions. The cabin was not to be sold. Not for 90 days. After 90 days, Maren could do as she pleased. But for 90 days, the cabin had to remain in the family. Those were Delphine's words. In the family. Maren asked why. Harold Pickering shook his head. He said Delphine had been a private woman. He said she had paid him in cash every year for 19 years to keep the property taxes current and the deed quiet. He said the last payment had come 3 months before she died. Maren asked how her aunt had died. Harold Pickering said stroke. He said it had been quick. He said the county coroner had signed the certificate in March. He did not look at her when he said it. He looked at his hands. She drove out of Silva at 3 in the afternoon. The map took her up Highway 107, then onto a county road, then onto a gravel road that climbed the side of a mountain in switchbacks. The pavement ended at a cattle gate. The gravel ended at a creek crossing. After that, there was only a rutted track up through the rhododendron. She drove 10 miles past the last paved road. The Bronco overheated twice. She let it cool. She kept going. The track narrowed. Branches scraped both sides of the truck. She thought about turning around. She thought about the $214. She kept going. The cabin sat in a small clearing on the north side of the ridge. It was not what she had expected. It was not a shack. It was a tidy cedar cabin with a stone chimney and a tin roof gone soft green with moss. The windows were shuttered. The door was bolted with a heavy iron padlock. A stack of split firewood sat under the eaves, neatly covered with a tarp. The tarp was rotted. The wood underneath was dry. She tried the skeleton key in the padlock. It did not fit. She walked around the cabin. There was a second door on the back, smaller, set lower into the foundation. The skeleton key turned the lock on that one. The door swung inward on hinges that did not squeak. Someone had oiled them once, a long time ago. She stepped inside. The smell was the first thing. Cedar and beeswax and something else, something faintly chemical, like old linseed oil. The air was dry. The cabin had been sealed tight enough that 19 years of mountain weather had not gotten in. She lit her flashlight. The beam swept across furniture under white dust sheets. A long farm table. A roll-top desk. A wingback chair pulled close to a stone hearth. Books on shelves. A wood-burning cook stove. A hand pump at the kitchen sink. She pulled the sheet off the farm table. The wood underneath was clean. She pulled the sheet off the desk. The papers inside were neat, stacked, sorted. She walked the perimeter of the room. Everything had been put away. Everything had been prepared. As if her aunt had known she was not coming back and had wanted the next person to find the place in order. That was when she saw the trapdoor. It was set into the kitchen floor between the cook stove and the pump. Heavy oak planks, hand-cut, banded with iron. A keyhole in the iron band. No handle. Just the keyhole. Marin knelt down. She put her ear to the wood. She heard nothing. She tried the skeleton key. It slid in. It turned. The bolt slid back inside the wood with a sound like a coin dropping into a tin can. She lifted the trapdoor by the edge of an iron band. It was heavier than she expected. The hinges were on the inside. A wooden staircase descended into the dark. The walls were stone. The air that came up smelled cold and dry and old. She thought she was looking at a root cellar. She thought she would find canning jars and maybe a dead mouse. She did not know yet what was waiting for her at the bottom of those stairs. She spent the night in the cabin. She was too tired to drive back down the mountain in the dark. She made a small fire in the hearth with kindling she found in a copper box beside the stones. She ate a granola bar from her glove compartment. She slept in the wingback chair with her coat over her like a blanket. The fire burned low. The cabin held the heat better than her house in Asheville. She slept finally for the first time in 2 days. When she woke, the sun was coming through a crack in the shutter, and a chickadee was singing in the cedar outside the window. For 10 seconds she forgot she was a widow. For 10 seconds the trapdoor in the kitchen floor was just a curiosity. She thought, maybe I can sell this place. Maybe I can sell it for $20,000. Maybe $20,000 is enough to pay the lawyer and start over. Maybe today is going to be a quiet day. A floorboard creaked above her head. She sat up. The fire was out. The cabin was silent. She listened. The board creaked again. Then she understood. The cabin had 2 floors. The board was settling. The cold was leaving the wood, and the wood was waking up. She let out a breath. She laughed once, a short, hard sound. Now here's the thing. The mountains play tricks on you. Sounds carry. Boards settle. A woman alone in a sealed cabin will hear things that are not there. She told herself that. She believed it for about 4 minutes. Then she went down into the cellar. She took the flashlight. She took the skeleton key. She took the small folding knife from Tom's old keychain. She did not know why she took the knife. She just did. She walked down the wooden stairs one at a time. The wood did not creak. The wood had been cut by someone who knew how to fit a stair tread to a stringer. The stones in the wall had been laid by someone who knew how to lay stone. This cellar had not been dug by a farmer. This cellar had been built. At the bottom of the stairs, the flashlight beam swept across crates. Wooden crates, stacked floor to ceiling. Marin counted 12 along the back wall. She counted 9 more along the side wall. Every crate was labeled in a neat, slanted hand. She did not recognize the names at first. Cole, Bierstadt, Durand, Church. Then she saw one she did recognize. Rivera. Diego Rivera. She remembered the name from a magazine. She set the flashlight on a crate. She pried the lid off the first one with Tom's pocket knife. The wood was old, and the nails came out easily. Inside, packed in cotton wadding and stiff brown paper, was a framed oil painting. The frame was gilt. The canvas showed a river valley at sunset, light pouring through clouds, a small figure on a rock by the water. The colors had not faded. The painting had been kept in the dark for a long time, and the dark had been kind to it. Marin did not know much about art. She knew the painting was old. She knew it was good. She knew her hands were shaking, and she could not feel her fingers. She opened a second crate. Another painting. A mountain lake, mist on the water, a deer at the edge of the trees. She opened a third. A field of wheat under a thunderhead. She walked to the side wall. The Rivera crate was longer and flatter. She pried the lid. Inside were rolled canvases tied with cotton ribbon. She did not untie them. She did not have to. She could see the corner of one. A woman's face, the brown skin, the dark eyes, the red shawl. She knew the style from the magazine. She knew this was not a print. In the corner of the cellar sat a steel ammo box. Olive green. Latched. She lifted it. It was heavy. She set it on a crate and she opened it. Inside, in stacked paper rolls, were gold coins. Double eagles. She did not know coins, but she could read the dates. 1907, 1924, 1928, 1932. Every one of them older than 1933. Every one of them gold. On top of the ammo box, when she lifted the lid the second time and looked more carefully, was a leather-bound book. A ledger. She opened it. The handwriting was Delphine's. Marin knew it from the letter the attorney had shown her. Slanted, neat, careful. Page after page of entries. Each entry a date, a description, a provenance, and a number. The numbers were large. The last entry was dated June of 2007. The last entry totaled, at the bottom of the page, in red ink, $11,400,000. Marin sat down on the cellar floor. She sat down because her legs would not hold her. She sat down with the ledger open across her knees, and the gold coins in front of her, and 21 crates of 19th-century American paintings stacked along the walls. Her husband had died owing $290,000 to a hospital. She had $214 in her checking account. The repo man was going to come for the Bronco on Monday, and she was sitting on a cellar floor with $11 million stacked around her. She started to laugh. She could not help it. She laughed until she cried. Then she just cried. Then she sat there for a long time in the cold and tried to make herself think. She thought about what she should do. She thought she should call the attorney. She thought she should call the FBI. She thought she should call someone who knew about insurance. She thought she should not tell anyone. She thought she should pack the Bronco and leave and drive to Mexico. She thought all these things, and then she stopped thinking because she saw something else. Something on the bottom step of the cellar stairs. A sealed envelope. White. Standard letter size. Her name written on the front in Delphine's careful slanted hand. Maren Holloway. And beside the envelope, lying on the wood, a small brass cylinder. She picked it up. She turned it in the flashlight beam. A spent casing. A bullet casing. The head stamp read 38 Special. She opened the envelope. Maren, the letter began. If you are reading this, it means I am dead, and the lawyer has done what I paid him to do. I am sorry to put this on you. You were a child the last time I saw you. I have followed your life from a distance. I know about Tom. I know about the bakery. I know what was done to you. That is why I am giving you what is in this cellar, and not your father. What is in this cellar is real. It is yours now. The provenance is in the ledger. Every piece can be sold legally. Pickering knows an honest broker in Charleston. His name is in the back of the ledger. Tell him I sent you. He will give you a fair price. I need you to know one more thing. I did not have a stroke. I want you to know that because what I am about to tell you will keep you alive if you listen. In June, a man came up the ridge. He drove a black Lincoln Town car. He was about my age. His name is Crawford Vance. He runs a private gallery in Charlotte. He is not a gallery owner. He is a fence. He moves stolen pieces through clean catalogs. He has known about this cellar since 1987. He has been waiting 19 years for me to die so he could take it. He offered me $400,000 for the whole hoard. I told him no. He came back. He told me I would change my mind. I told him no. If I am dead, it is because he came back a third time. The casing on the step is what I left for you. It is from his gun. He dropped it. He did not notice. I picked it up after he was gone. I think he believes I am still alive on this ridge. I think he watches the road. If he finds out the cabin has changed hands, he will come for you. Do not let him in. Do not meet him alone. Take this letter and this casing, and the ledger to a man named Sheriff Boone Whitlock in Jackson County. He is the only one I trust. He will know what to do. I am sorry, Maren. I should have known you when you were a young woman. I did not. I am trying to make it right with what I have left. Yours, Delphine. Maren read the letter twice. Then she read it a third time. She sat on the cellar floor, and she felt the cold come up through her jeans, and she felt her hands go numb around the paper. She put the letter back in the envelope. She put the envelope in her coat pocket. She put the brass casing in her other pocket. She climbed the stairs out of the cellar, and she closed the trapdoor, and she locked it with the skeleton key. She walked to the front window of the cabin. She lifted the corner of the shutter. She looked out at the gravel track that ran down the ridge. The morning sun had cleared the trees. The track was empty. The clearing was empty. The woods were empty. She watched for a long time. If you are still with me, hit that subscribe button. There is more coming, and I do not want you to miss what happens next on that ridge road." She drove down the mountain that afternoon. She did not take the paintings. She did not take the gold. She took the ledger and the letter and the spent casing, and she locked the cabin behind her with the iron padlock that fit the front door and the skeleton key that fit the back. The track down the mountain felt longer than the track up. She watched the rearview mirror more than she watched the road. The Bronco overheated again at the first switchback. She let it cool. She kept going. She drove to the courthouse in Silva, and she asked for Sheriff Boone Whitlock. The clerk told her the sheriff was retired. The clerk told her he lived on a farm outside Cullowhee, and he kept his old number in the phone book. Marin wrote the number on the back of the attorney's business card. She drove out of town. Boone Whitlock answered on the third ring. His voice was deep and slow and tired. He had been retired for 11 years. He listened while she talked. She told him about the letter. She told him about the cellar. She told him about the casing. She did not tell him about the $11 million. He did not ask. He told her to come to the farm. He told her to come now. The farm was at the end of a dirt road. A white farmhouse. A red barn. 2 old hounds on the porch. Boone Whitlock was 76 years old. He was tall and thin, and he wore a gray Stetson over white hair. He sat her down at his kitchen table. His wife brought coffee and went into the back of the house. He read the letter. He read it twice. He laid the spent casing on the table, and he looked at it for a long time without touching it. He said he had known Delphine Holloway. He said he had known her since 1989. He said he had always wondered about her. He said he had never quite believed the stroke either. He had told the coroner so. The coroner had told him to mind his own business and enjoy his retirement. He asked Marin if she trusted him. She said she did not know. He said that was the right answer. He told her about Crawford Vance. He had been hearing the name for 40 years. Charlotte Gallery man. Old money. Polished. Connected. Always one step on the right side of the line. 2 stolen Wyeths had moved through his catalog in 1994. The FBI had looked at him and found nothing. A Bierstadt had surfaced in a private sale in Houston in 2001 that had been stolen from a Boston townhouse in 1986. The chain of sale led back to Vance's gallery and then went cold. There had been a federal investigation. It had been quietly closed. Boone Whitlock did not know why it had been closed. He had his suspicions. He said the name Crawford Vance had come across his desk one other time. In June of 2007, a black Lincoln Town car with a Charlotte plate had been ticketed by a deputy for speeding on Highway 107. The driver had given his name. The deputy had let him off with a warning. The ticket book was still in the records room at the courthouse. Boone Whitlock had circled the name in pencil when he saw it. He had not known why at the time. He knew now. The day Delphine died was 3 days after that ticket. Boone Whitlock stood up. He walked to the kitchen window. He looked out at the barn. He turned back to Marin. He said this. He said Crawford Vance was still alive. He said Crawford Vance still ran the gallery in Charlotte. He said Crawford Vance still drove a Lincoln, though it was a newer one now. He said if Delphine had been telling the truth in that letter, and Boone Whitlock believed she had been, then Crawford Vance had been waiting 19 years to walk into that cellar. He had been waiting and watching. The probate filing in Silva was a public record. Anyone could read it. Marin Holloway, niece of Asheville. The cabin transferred. The 90-day clause invoked. Crawford Vance, Boone Whitlock said quietly, knows the cabin has a new owner. He knows it already. He has known it for 2 weeks. Marin felt the kitchen go cold around her. Boone Whitlock told her what to do. He told her she was not going back up to that cabin alone. Not tonight. Not any night until this was finished. He told her she would stay at the farm. There was a guest room. His wife would make up the bed. In the morning, he would make some calls. He had a friend in the State Bureau of Investigation. He had another friend at the FBI field office in Asheville. He had a third friend who was a federal prosecutor and who hated Crawford Vance with a clean hatred that came from 20 years of watching the man slip the net. He said with the ledger, with the provenance, with the casing, with the letter, with a search warrant on the cabin and the gallery and the town car, they could end Crawford Vance forever. They could end him in a way that would not let him slip out. But it had to be done right. And it had to be done fast. He asked her if she could do that. She said yes. She said it before she thought about it. She said it because she was tired of being afraid, and tired of being poor, and tired of being a widow who did not have anything left to lose. She said it because somewhere in the cellar of that cabin, a dead woman had left her a chance to make something right. The next 10 days were the longest of her life. The federal prosecutor was a woman named Anita Reyes. She drove up from Asheville on a Saturday morning. She sat at Boone Whitlock's kitchen table, and she read the ledger, and she did not blink. She made phone calls. She got warrants by Wednesday. The cellar was photographed and cataloged by a team in white gloves from the FBI Art Crime Unit. The crate stayed. The painting stayed. The gold stayed. Everything stayed exactly where it was. Because Anita Reyes wanted Crawford Vance to come up that ridge road himself, in his own car, with his own intent, on his own choice. She wanted him to step through the trapdoor. They set the trap on a Tuesday in late October. Marin made a phone call. She called the number that had been written in the back of the ledger, the one Delphine had warned her about, the one that was not the honest Charleston broker but the other one. The fence's number. She made the call from a borrowed phone at the courthouse. She used her real name. She said she had inherited her aunt's cabin, and she needed to sell what was in it. She said she had been told he could help. She said she did not know what she had. She said she just needed money. She said it the way a frightened widow would say it, which was easy because she was a frightened widow. Crawford Vance came up the ridge 2 days later. He came in the morning. A silver Lincoln Town car. Pennsylvania plates this time, not Charlotte. Smart man. He pulled into the clearing at 10 in the morning. He got out. He was 68 years old. White hair, blue blazer, gray slacks, a leather satchel under his arm. He smiled at Marin when she opened the door. He had a nice smile. He had practiced it for 50 years. She let him in. She offered him coffee. He sat at the farm table. He admired the cabin. He said her aunt had been a remarkable woman. He said he had bought small pieces from her years ago, just small pieces, decorative pieces, nothing of significance. He said he had been sorry to hear of her passing. Marin said the cellar was through the kitchen. She said the trapdoor was heavy. She said she had not been able to open it herself. She said she had managed only to crack the lid. She said she had seen crates. She did not know what was in them. Crawford Vance set down his coffee. He stood up. He walked into the kitchen. He looked at the trapdoor. He looked at Marin. He smiled again. He asked if she had a key. She gave him the skeleton key. He knelt. He turned the lock. He lifted the trapdoor with one hand, easy, like he had done it before, like he knew how heavy it was before he lifted it. He looked down into the cellar. He took a flashlight from his satchel. He clicked it on. The beam swept across crates. Coal. Bierstadt. Durand. Church. Rivera. He let out a small, soft sound that was almost a sigh. He started down the stairs. He was 3 steps down when the back door opened, and Boone Whitlock walked in with a service weapon drawn, and Anita Reyes walked in behind him with a federal warrant in her left hand, and 2 FBI agents walked in behind her with their hands on their belts. 2 more came in through the front. Crawford Vance turned on the cellar stairs. He looked up at the trapdoor. He looked at Marin standing in the kitchen with her arms crossed. He understood in that 1 second what had been done to him. He went very still. He set the flashlight on the step. He put his hands up. He smiled a smaller smile this time, a tired smile. He said, "Well." He said it like a man who had been waiting 19 years to say it. He said, "Well, Delphine. Well done." They took him out in handcuffs through the front door of the cabin. Marin did not watch them put him in the car. She walked to the back of the cabin, and she sat on the step where her aunt had once sat, and she looked out at the ridge. The leaves were turning. The maples were red, and the hickories were gold. A red-tailed hawk turned slow circles above the clearing. She thought about Delphine. She thought about a woman who had built a cellar on a mountain to hide a fortune from the world. She thought about a woman who had refused, on a June night 19 years ago, to sell what she had spent her life saving. She thought about a spent casing on the bottom step. She thought about Tom. She thought about the bakery. She thought about cinnamon bread on Mondays. The federal case against Crawford Vance took 11 months. He pled out in the end. He was 69 years old. He took 22 years in a federal prison in West Virginia. The FBI recovered 6 stolen paintings from his gallery in Charlotte that had been listed on Interpol's database for 30 years. 3 of them were returned to museums. 2 were returned to families. 1 was returned to a small church in Pennsylvania that did not know it had been missing a piece for 41 years. The hoard in Delphine's cellar was almost entirely clean. The provenance was perfect. Delphine had bought every piece honestly over 40 years, using her appraiser's eye and her old contacts and her quiet money. 2 of the smaller Bierstadts had been bought at estate sales for nothing because no one had known what they were. The Rivera studies had been bought directly from a dealer in Mexico City in 1981. The gold double eagles had been bought one at a time, year after year, from a coin shop in Asheville that had since closed. The honest broker in Charleston, the one whose name was written in the back of the ledger, was a man named Stephen Coltrane. He flew up from Charleston in March. He spent a week in the cabin with 3 assistants and a climate-controlled van. He took inventory. He took photographs. He took the pieces, one by one, to be auctioned at Sotheby's and Christie's over the course of 2 years. The hoard sold in the end for $9,800,000 net of commission. Marin paid the hospital. She paid every dollar. She paid the bank. She paid the repo company before they could get the Bronco. She kept the Bronco. She put a new transmission in it. She did not move out of the house in Asheville. She had thought about it. She had thought about a bigger house, a quieter house, a house with no memories of Tom. In the end, she stayed in the small house on the small street where she had lived with her husband for 16 years. She had the kitchen redone. She had the bakery on Charlotte Street bought back from the developer. She opened it again on a Saturday in May. She called it Delphine's. Cinnamon bread on Mondays. Sourdough on Wednesdays. Wedding cakes on weekends. She kept the cabin. She did not sell the ridge. After the 90-day clause expired, she had the option, but she did not take it. She had a contractor come up in the spring and shore up the roof and the chimney and the stone foundation. She had the trapdoor taken out and the cellar steps replaced. She turned the cellar into a wine cellar. She put a small brass plate on the wall at the bottom of the stairs. It read, simply, Delphine Holloway, 1937 to 2007. She drove up to the cabin 3 or 4 weekends a year. She brought books. She brought a notebook. She sat in the wingback chair by the hearth, and she watched the fire, and she listened to the cabin settle in the cold mountain air. The chickadees came back every spring. The hawks turned slow circles above the clearing. The crows called once and went silent. Sometimes, on quiet nights, she would take down the leather ledger from the shelf above the desk. She would open it to the last page. She would read her aunt's handwriting. The slanted, careful hand. The neat numbers. The red ink at the bottom of the page. Then she would close the ledger. She would put it back on the shelf. She would bank the fire for the night. She would sleep in the wingback chair with her coat over her like a blanket, the way she had slept the very first night, when she had $214 in her checking account and no idea what was waiting for her at the bottom of those stairs. In the morning, the sun would come through the crack in the shutter. A chickadee would sing in the cedar outside the window. And Marin Holloway, who had once been a bankrupt widow with nothing left, would wake up on a mountain that belonged to her, in a cabin that belonged to her, with the long, quiet day ahead of her, and she would be home.